Live from KTTC, your weather authority, this is KTTC News at 6.
I have signed an emergency order declaring a state of local emergency around this situation in St. Paul right now, and also establishing a citywide curfew that will start at 8 o'clock p.m. tonight.
That was a St. Paul Mayor Carter. Meantime, Minneapolis and St. Paul up in flames last night, many describing it as a war zone. The National Guard steps in and has diffused the situation for now. And now to try to avoid a fourth night of devastation in Minneapolis, Mayor Fry and St. Paul Mayor Carter have announced city curfews of 8 p.m. until 6 a.m. This, as it is announced that Officer Derek Chauvin has been arrested and charged in the death of George Floyd. Thanks for joining us tonight. Thousands of Minnesotans and millions of Americans have demanded it. Officer Chauvin has been charged. He is the officer seen pressing his knee into Floyd's neck. Our Barrett Leone joins us live in our studio with more details. And what are we learning at this hour, Barrett?
Good evening, Tom and Caitlin. Hennepin County Attorney Mike Freeman says this is the quickest the county has ever pressed charges against a police officer. According to the county attorney, Hennepin County is one of the few in the country that have successfully prosecuted an officer for murder, citing Justine Damon's case just a few years back. Freeman says typically these cases take 9 months to a year, but with Floyd's case with the evidence that the state has, these charges are called for. 4 days after George Floyd was killed, an announcement that made the state pause.
Former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin has been charged by the Hennepin County Attorney's Office with murder and with manslaughter. We are in the process of continuing to review the evidence. There may be subsequent charges later.
According to a criminal complaint released Friday, Floyd did resist arrest Monday and struggled with officers, saying that Floyd, quote, stiffened up, fell to the ground, and told officers he was claustrophobic. Officers made several attempts to get Floyd into the squad car until Floyd went face down, and Officer Chauvin put his left knee on Floyd's neck. Another officer held Floyd's back and legs. Perhaps the most stunning evidence, Chauvin held his knee on Floyd's neck for a total of 8 minutes and 46 seconds, including 2 minutes and 53 seconds after Floyd became unresponsive.
We cannot, and I will not allow us to charge a case until it's ready. This case is now ready, and we have charged it.
While a full autopsy report is pending, Hennepin County Medical Examiner does state that there are no physical findings that support Floyd died of asphyxiation or strangulation. It also says Floyd had underlying health conditions.
The investigation is ongoing. We felt it appropriate to focus on the most dangerous perpetrator. We have never charged a case in that kind of time frame. And we can only charge a case when we have sufficient admissible evidence to prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt. As of right now, we have that.
Today, Floyd's family released a statement in response saying it was a welcome yet overdue step towards justice. It reads in part, quote, "We want a first-degree murder charge and we want to see the other officers arrested. We call on authorities to revise the charges to reflect the true culpability of the officer. The pain that the Black community feels over this murder and what it reflects about the treatment of Black people in America is raw and is spilling out into the streets across America. While this is a right and necessary step, we need the city of Minneapolis and cities across the country to fix the policies and training deficiencies that permitted this unlawful killing and so many others to occur." As for the other 3 officers involved in George Floyd's death, Hennepin County Attorney Mike Freeman says that he anticipates charges but did not speculate any further. To read the criminal complaint in its entirety, see the web version of this story. Reporting live in the studio, Barrett Leone, KTTC News. Thank you, Barrett. And despite today's charges, protests are continuing, including in the Med City this afternoon.
We have 2 crews up in the Twin Cities, but first let's check in with our Alex Tejada, who is live in downtown Rochester, where we saw a march through downtown earlier this afternoon. Alex, tell us more of what happened.
Tom, Caitlin, so far the protests have been peaceful with people very angry, but ultimately heartbroken. Demonstrators started gathering at Soldiers Field Park earlier in the afternoon before marching downtown to the Government Center just after 4. The crowd was chanting things like, "I can't breathe," and "No justice, no peace." They were led by police escorts, and most of the onlookers honked in approval. However, one person downtown scoffed at the protesters and allegedly uttered a racial slur.
I'm tired, Lord. I'm tired, America. I'm tired. Why? Why? Please change Minnesota, please. Was it because of my skin? Why? We all bleed the same. We all bleed the same.
Mr. Washington was just one of many people today who was visibly very emotional when the crowd marched back to Soldiers Field Park. Several people took to the mic and shared stories, words of encouragement, and one man even shared a rap. The crowd dispersed from Soldiers Field Park just after 5, but many of the protesters came back to the government center, and they're gathering here. There are police officers inside the building, and they have some strong messages for them, but ultimately the protests have been all peaceful and in the name of social change. Live in Rochester, Alex Tejada, KTTC News.
Alex, thank you. And today in Minneapolis was a peaceful demonstration that included celebrities like Jamie Foxx and Karl Anthony Towns. Our Uba Ali has been there all day and joins us now live with the latest. Uba.
Yeah, good evening, Tom and Caitlin. This is the site, 38th in Chicago, where officers arrested and kneeled on George Floyd, leading to his death. And since Monday night, many crowds have gathered. The memorial site has even grown, but community leaders saying more needs to be done. Community leaders and George Floyd's best friend, Stephen Jackson Sr., held a news conference earlier today demanding change and that all 4 officers involved be charged. In the middle of the news conference, they found out that former police officer Chauvin was indeed charged.
And we will not be satisfied until all 4 of them are arrested and actually charged with the murder of George Floyd. So that is what we are here to do. We are not satisfied with one officer.
They say that although one of the officers is now arrested, more still needs to be done. Now, community leaders say, and Floyd's best friend, Stephen Jackson Sr., say that all officers need to be charged and when the time comes, be convicted. But here at 38th in Chicago, the crowds have gathered. There's a lot of it. There's chants going on. You know, what it seems like to me is that they're all grappling with the situation that's overturned the state and the city of Minneapolis and just want it to be peaceful. And right now, it is peaceful. For now, reporting live in South Minneapolis, Uba Ali, KTTC News.
Uba, thank you. And we will be checking in with our second crew up in Minneapolis in just a few minutes. But first, shift gears here. It was a nice afternoon and nice weather headed into the weekend as well. Chief Meteorologist Nick Jansen is out on a sunny weather patio this evening. Nick?
Yeah, beautiful conditions so far this evening here out on the weather patio to round out this work week on Friday. We have temperatures in the lower 60s as of now in southeast Minnesota. We'll check in on our Lewis and Ida live camera as we look at Highway 52. Temperatures right at 60 degrees. Winds out of the northwest at 13 miles per hour. Our dew points down in the lower 40s. Will stay nice and pretty much dry throughout the weekend as temperatures still right around 60 degrees, upper 60s now in northeast Iowa where we've had a little bit of sunshine, and we'll see that on future track radar. We've had some partly cloudy skies through Rochester. We actually had some overcast skies early this morning. It's kind of hindered some of our temperatures, but as we zoom out, quiet conditions will dominate the forecast as we move towards the weekend. Your day planner for tomorrow, a little bit of a cool start. Temperatures by 9 a.m. right around 53 degrees. We do warm up into those mid 60s for highs coming up on your Saturday. 63 degrees for the high today here in Rochester. That's below average for this time of year as we head towards the weekend. Below average on Saturday and Sunday. Maybe the 80s, 90s back into the forecast next week. We'll track that out coming up in your Weather Authority forecast. Back to you.
Nick, thank you. And after 3 nights of chaos, the dust has settled a little, leaving ashes and rubble for some buildings. And our Camaria Bray is surveying the damage of the events in the last 24 hours. And Camaria, what have you seen today?
Well, Tom, things are looking a little different here on Minnehaha Avenue. There are still demonstrators, but today there's about 50 state patrols that's in tactical gear blocking access to East Lake Street, where around the corner is the police department and that Target's and that liquor store that all was burned down. And demonstrators are continuing to let officers know that killings of innocent black people needs to end. The protest has been peaceful in a completely different atmosphere than what we saw last night. I spoke with a demonstrator. He said he knew the daughter of Eric Garner, a New York man who was arrested in 2014 that pleaded to officers that he couldn't breathe. Garner died from that encounter. The demonstrator says all the Minneapolis officers involved need to be put behind bars.
How many officers out there really have a heart? And those who have a heart will look at this video and cry and be shocked just like me and want some type of justice. third-degree murder wasn't enough. We know that. But we must continue to fight and push, and all of those officers involved need to be held accountable.
No, we're on live. Now, Governor Walz has issued a temporary curfew for the city of Minneapolis and the city of St. Paul that starts 8 p.m. tonight and ends at 6 a.m. in the morning. That's Friday and Saturday. So live in Minneapolis, I'm Kamaria Bray, KTTC News.
All right, thank you, Kamaria. Well, another city in chaos as well.
What the mayor of St. Paul is saying tonight following the looting and destruction of some of its businesses.
KTTC, your weather authority, with Tom Overley, Caitlin Alexander, Chief Meteorologist Nick Jansen, and sports with Pat Lund. KTTC News at 6 continues.
St. Paul saw extreme damage last night as well.
From the target on the Midway being destroyed to a number of fires throughout the city was in chaos like Minneapolis. And today, the mayor, Melvin Carter, was joined by the St. Paul police chief on how they're working to keep the city safe, including that 8 p.m. curfew tonight. The mayor says he understands the anger, but says the city's safety needs to be the #1 priority.
170 businesses. Over 170 businesses were damaged last night. Our firefighters responded to 40-some fires. We cannot accept that as normal. We cannot accept that as okay in our community any more than we can accept the death of George Floyd as okay in our community.
And as we've said, St. Paul and Minneapolis are now under a curfew of 8 p.m. until 6 a.m. both tonight and tomorrow. The president weighing in on the unrest in the Twin Cities with a tweet flagged for glorifying violence. Reaction to his words.
And the National Guard is on the ground to restore peace in the Twin Cities. We're going to hear from state leaders on this step coming up.
And we're tracking some very comfortable conditions for the upcoming weekend with highs below average. Next week, the heat and humidity returns to the forecast. We'll have your Weather Authority forecast coming up right after this.
The National Guard is now deployed to assist the cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul in an effort to restore peace. KTTC's Sarah Gannon joins us live in the studio with that part of the story. Sarah.
Well, good evening, Caitlin. After another destructive night across the Twin Cities, the National Guard was called in to provide support for police and fire departments. That was announced in a morning news conference.
At 12:15 Friday morning, Governor Walz authorized a law and order mission into the 3rd Precinct, which would secure the area, eventually allowing for cleanup to begin.
Now, I want to just be very clear, and I'm going to have the team talk about what transitioned last night when the state assumed responsibility over the security near the 3rd Precinct, where the state secured critical assets, and where the plan going forward to ensure that tonight our buildings do not burn, our citizens are secure, and that space that we're going to create allows us to get back to the conversation of serving justice and making sure that we're not adding to that list of unheard names.
Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison said the National Guard is not the enemy. Its job to bring peace and a sense of calm back into the communities.
I'd like everyone to recognize the fact that the National Guard just a week ago was administering COVID-19 tests to help people, The presence you see on the street, don't react to them the way you might react to the Minneapolis Police Department. It's not the same group. They have different leadership, different authority.
The National Guard was asked to assist in 4 missions specifically, one of which was to respond to an immediate threat to the state capitol. The 2nd and 3rd missions were to provide security to the Ramsey County Law Enforcement Center and the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension. The 4th mission was to aid the Minneapolis Fire Department.
The concept of the operation is that we would link up with the Minneapolis Police Department, and as they went into unsecure and dangerous areas, that we would secure the area so they could perform their life-saving and property-saving missions.
Walz also said enough is enough and the looting and riots need to end and peace needs to be restored so that officials can get back to focusing on bringing justice to George Floyd. Reporting live in the studio, Sarah Gannon, KTTC News.
Sarah, thank you. And late last night, as the Twin Cities were burning, the president weighed in, saying that there is a total lack of leadership from the, quote, very weak radical left Mayor Jacob Frey. Well, the president went on to say that he spoke with Governor Tim Walz and the military is with him. He added that the federal government will assume control when necessary, but when the looting starts, the shooting starts. And in an escalation in the president's fight with Twitter, the company placed a notice on that tweet saying that it violated Twitter's rules on glorifying violence. Mayor Fry responded to the president.
Weakness is refusing to take responsibility for your own actions. Weakness is pointing your finger at somebody else during a time of crisis. Donald Trump knows nothing about the strength of Minneapolis. We are strong as hell. Is this a difficult time period? Yes, but you better be damn sure that we're gonna get through this.
We had some beautiful conditions, at least in the forecast for today, and extending into the weekend as well. So try to get outside and enjoy it with these temperatures that will be around the corner for next week into the mid to upper 80s, and will be a little muggy next week as well. Our Garden Gallery winner for the 6 o'clock broadcast is Kathy. She sent in a nice little hosta garden here that she has working. So Kathy, you can head on down to Sargent's on 2nd to get a $10 gift card there. And if you've missed our winner so far this week, you can go to our website at kttc.com, and there'll be a little tab on the weather page there that you can look at the week's previous winners. Now, outside currently on our Lewis and Out Alive camera, we have temperatures at 60 degrees. We have some partly sunny skies here in Rochester, winds out of the northwest at 13 miles per hour. As we look at current temperatures across southeast Minnesota, lower 60s, look a lot similar to this coming up for tomorrow as well. Partly cloudy skies, especially to the east of the Mississippi River. We're thinning those clouds out so far here through the late afternoon, early evening hours. This weekend, we'll see the 70s, I think, by Sunday, but overall weekend temperatures will be very spring-like, very comfortable in the upper Midwest. Next week, we have a little bit of a pattern change. Things happen next week where all of a sudden we're into the 80s, maybe 90s coming up next week. Very summer-like conditions. So we move from summer-like that we had earlier this week, then spring-like this weekend. Next week, we'll have high temperatures by Tuesday into the upper 80s, maybe even some lower 90s in the forecast in the upper Midwest next week as well. Temperatures tonight, watch, we all of a sudden drop all the way down into the mid 40s maybe for overnight lows. A little chilly to start things off Saturday. We have a little bit of increase in cloud cover, especially to the south and southwest. I think a lot of us see some sunshine for tomorrow, and tomorrow afternoon we'll have some partly cloudy skies at times. Temperatures then Saturday night into Sunday back down into those 40s for overnight lows. Sunday slightly warmer, potentially upper 60s to lower 70s for highs on Sunday. 49 for the overnight low tonight. Cool and quiet conditions on the way this evening. Saturday 66, Sunday 71. Overall a picture perfect type of weekend before we have the heat and humidity back into the forecast. We're into the upper 80s by Tuesday. I think mid to upper 80s on Wednesday with several chances for showers and thunderstorms next week. Tom?
All right, thank you. Well, up next in sports, the NHL has begun to hand out regular season awards. We'll tell you some of the big winners.
Plus, the NBA could be back in action by the end of July. Mark will tell you how after the break. As we head to break, a look at the top stories you're reading on our website, kttc.com.
What's going on, sports fans? I'm Mark Powers. Pat Lund has the day off. This evening, we start the sports party on the hardwood, where The Athletic reports the NBA has identified a start date. NBA insider Shams Charania tweeted that NBA Commissioner Adam Silver in the league office informed the Board of Governors that July 31st is the target date for a return to the season. The NBA was the first sports league in the country to suspend its season due to the coronavirus, which it did back on March 11th. Last weekend, the NBA announced it was in exploratory talks with Disney about resuming the season at their ESPN Wide World of Sports complex in Orlando, Florida. Now to college sports. Today, the NCAA released its plan to help schools bring athletes back to campus. They say if students travel to campus by bus or air, they should self-quarantine for at least 7 days. Also, before returning to campus, students should be without COVID-19 symptoms for at least 2 weeks. They also recommend that student athletes and athletic staff hold daily self-health checks. Now, to baseball, ESPN's Jeff Passan reports the Twins are committed to paying their minor league players their $400 per week stipend and their full health benefits through August 31st. That is typically when the minor league season ends and Major League Baseball rosters expand with September call-ups. They also will not cut any players, so all players in the organization will be paid through the end of the season. Now to hockey. With the postseason schedule in place, the NHL has begun to hand out its regular season awards. This year's Rocket Richard Trophy goes to both the Capitals' Alex Ovechkin and the Bruins' David Pastrnak. Both led the league with 48 goals in the regular season, with Ovechkin capturing a share of his league record 9th scoring title. And that's Look at Sports at 6. We'll see you back here later tonight at 10.
Just into our newsroom, the White House is now on lockdown as protests continue in Washington, D.C. as well.
Following up also on the big news of the day, again, former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin arrested and charged today in the death of George Floyd. Protests continued for a fourth day this week, mostly in the Twin Cities, but also here in Rochester. This is a live look at the demonstration at the site in Minneapolis where Floyd was arrested and where he later died. Charges are still pending for the other 3 officers involved. Violence over the last couple of nights prompting curfew orders in the Twin Cities tonight and tomorrow night.
And also, we're just getting word too that Mayor Kim Norton is addressing the group of protesters in downtown Rochester. We hope to be able to bring you more tonight at 10.
We'll see you at 10 o'clock. Have a good evening.